Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Writer's Practice, Building Confidence in Your Nonfiction Writing by John Warner, narrated by Gary Bennett. Getting started. Before we begin, do me a favor and write down how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Writing experiences. In this book, rather than assignments or essays, I want us to consider what we're doing in terms of experiences. While you've likely done lots of writing, for our purposes, you've just completed your first writing experience. How did you do? Take a moment to visualize what would happen if someone who is unfamiliar with making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich could successfully make an acceptable sandwich with your instructions. What would they do? What's missing? For example, is there a line like, "Take the peanut butter and spread it on one side of the bread"? Picture someone following this instruction literally. It does not tell this person how much peanut butter to spread, or what to spread it with. A true literalist would actually be rubbing the closed peanut butter jar against a piece of bread. Delicious. Maybe this seems picky or ridiculous, but imagine leaving out key instructions for something not as mundane as making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Take a couple of minutes to see all the mistakes you might cause if someone followed your instructions to the letter. Learning from experiences. Do not feel bad if you now recognize your instructions as subpar. I set you up for failure. Over the years, I have asked hundreds, maybe thousands of people, ranging from students to tenured professors to published writers, to prepare instructions for making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And almost invariably, they make very similar mistakes. They make mistakes because I purposefully neglected to mention an audience in the instructions. And by not doing this, I have induced them to be careless and inconsiderate of the audience's needs. This is forgivable, since they didn't know the audience existed. Most people, when asked to do this, write a vague description of themselves making a sandwich. In their minds, they picture the steps as they see them, rather than through the eyes of an inexperienced sandwich maker. Now that you are aware of an audience, you would likely change your directions in significant ways. Being audience-aware while working is one of the most important skills writers develop. Over time, it becomes second nature to ask yourself if the choices you're making are good ones. You are already a more experienced writer with an improved appreciation for the role of the audience in writing, and we've just barely started. Before we move on to more experiences, I want to answer some questions you might be having. Questions about this book. Who is it for? This book is for anyone who wants to improve their writing, which is everyone, because everyone is a writer. Think about it. You write all the time. You text, you email, you interact on social media, you make lists, and you write for school or work or both. On any given day, you write thousands of words. Writing is communication. If you're trying to convey a specific message to a specific audience to fulfill a specific purpose, you're writing. How does it work? We get better at writing the same way we get better at anything else, by doing it. This book is designed for doing things that allow you to practice the writer's practice. Yes, you are going to practice your practice, the attitudes, skills, habits of mind, and knowledge that writers engage with when they are writing. Ultimately, the goal is to think and act as a writer whenever you are confronted with a writing task. You will practice your practice by engaging with different experiences, after which you will reflect on the experience to better understand what you've learned and can apply the next time you are confronted with a writing-related problem. The experience of writing instructions for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich has likely already allowed you to reflect on how important it is to consider your audience before you start writing. Now that we know that considering the audience is a key to effective communication, We will do it from this moment forward. Writing is a skill, but it's a skill that can appear to disappear when we move from a familiar writing task to an unfamiliar writing task. Reflection is a way to transfer what we know about writing in one arena to a new arena by understanding the similarities and identifying the differences and adjusting accordingly. It's like an athlete looking at a game tape or a musician reviewing a performance. We're asking, what happened? What did I learn? What will I do differently the next time? Eventually, enough experience accrues, and you have a battle-tested process for tackling any writing task, no matter how unfamiliar. What do I need? There are no prerequisites for having these experiences, and there is no one so experienced that they can't benefit from them. In fact, once I started thinking about writing as a series of experiences, I became a much better writer. When I need to write something unfamiliar, I now try to break it down as a writing experience. Once you've had enough experiences, you too will be able to take an unfamiliar writing task and break it down into its component parts. You want to keep track of your writing experiences one way or another, but you should use the writing tools with which you're most comfortable. I'm a word processing software person myself, but if you're a chisel and stone tablet type, all blessings to you. In addition to the experiences themselves, I've included chapters designed to allow for deeper, big-picture reflection about what you're learning. Will this work in a class? The experiences are designed to be adaptable to a class context. An instructor can add elements such as grading criteria, deadlines, word counts, specific readings, peer response, or anything else necessary to fit the structures and rhythms of school. Almost all of these experiences were born in the college classrooms in which I've worked for 20 years. In the appendix, I've included possible assignment sequences that may be useful in planning a contained, semester-long course. It's important to remember that these are designed to be experiences, and the meaning is in the doing. This leaves room for any necessary alterations to meet specific curricular needs or demands. What if I'm working alone? Care has been taken to make all experiences self-contained and doable on your own. Because we always write for audiences, at times you will be asked to find someone to test your writing's effectiveness on. But following the process will provide you with enough information and context to complete the experience, and, in turn, increase your knowledge of and confidence in your own writing. How do I start? You've already started. Now that you've started, you should try as many experiences as you like. Some can take as little as a few minutes, while others may stretch over days or weeks. Many of these experiences can be repeated over and over, and you will continue to learn new things each time. Just like a musician, you may choose to play the same piece over and over, and find you become more deeply familiar with a particular writing experience each time around. The learning is always in the doing. Where are we going? I've been writing seriously for more than 25 years, and teaching for 20. I am certain that everyone can learn to write, but to achieve this, the writer must be in charge of their own learning. This book is here to give shape to your practice and encourage you to work purposefully toward increasing proficiency. While you will, quite frankly, amass experience, it's important to recognize that there is no terminal expertise in writing. You will get a little better every time you do it, but you will never reach a finish line after which you will cease to improve. This is one of the best things about writing with purpose and writing through different experiences. May as well keep going by next figuring out who you are as a writer. Who are you as a writer? Earlier, I declared that you're already a writer. It's best to just embrace this identity right out of the gate. The definition of writer is someone who writes, so you qualify. But what kind of writer are you? When do you write? How do you write? What are your attitudes toward writing? In this opening experience, you'll explore your previous experiences as a writer. Audience. You're writing for someone who is curious to know about you and your experiences as a writer, what you've done, how you feel, what you hope to do. They know nothing about you or your past experiences writing, but want to get an idea of what you've done and where you're coming from. Process. 1. Consider your past. Before writing the piece itself, spend some time thinking about your experiences as a writer, what you've done, where you've done it, why you've done it. Consider your attitudes toward these things you've done. How do you see yourself? What has shaped your views? Consider making a timeline that charts the kind of writing you've done at different times in your life. 2. Draft. Remembering that your audience knows nothing about you, draft a communication to them that fulfills their needs. You'll write directly to your audience. 3. Revise. Review your draft for coherence and structure. Are you telling the audience what they need to know and in an order that helps them understand your message? Are you exemplifying your message? Think of it like a game of show and tell. Saying, "I like writing," makes your experience vague and abstract to your audience. They're likely to wonder why you like writing, or what sorts of things you like to write, or when you like to write. Instead, show your audience your message through examples that illustrate what you're telling them. 4. Edit and polish. You're making your first impression on someone with whom you'll be working. Try to make the kind of impression you desire. Reflect. In the process of considering the audience as you were writing, hopefully you've learned something about yourself. Some questions to consider. How diverse are your writing experiences? Have you written lots of different things, or do you feel like you've mostly done variations of the same thing? Which sounds more true to you? I am a good/bad writer, or I am good/bad at writing. Why would you choose one over the other? How much, if any, of your attitude about writing is linked to what happened in school and/or grades? What about other kinds of feedback you've received on your writing? When have you most enjoyed writing? When have you least enjoyed it? What is the difference between those experiences? You won't be surprised to hear me say that declaring you are good or bad, as though this is a fixed and immutable state, is not a great way to improve a skill. Even saying you're good or bad at writing probably isn't that helpful. Remember, there is no finish line for writers. Worry less about how good you are, and think more about how practicing writing will make you better. Remix. Considering your reflections, design your ideal writing situation. What kind of writing would you be doing? How would you be doing it? Who would be reading it? Who would be judging it? Where would you be writing? What would you be writing about? Put this into a brief statement on its own, something that could fit on a 4x6 index card. Keep this nearby when you're writing as a way to reflect on what you're doing in the moment and to see if there are any ways to bridge any gaps between the actual and the ideal by changing your point of view. Section 1. Introduction to the Writer's Practice. The experiences in this book are designed to help you develop a writer's practice. But what do I mean by this? To start, think of a chef. What makes a chef a chef? A chef must have a chef's skills, knife work, cooking techniques, and the like. They should also have a deep knowledge of flavors and ingredients, how salt, fat, and acid combine to create different taste experiences, and how different cooking techniques bring out different qualities in the ingredients. Chefs must be able to look in the refrigerator and pantry and be able to assemble a meal. Chefs need to be able to plan and execute a dish, and juggle multiple tasks during the execution phase. They must be able to correct course when something looks off, and they need to have the confidence to know when something needs to go in the garbage rather than be served to diners. even if it means someone will grumble. All this makes up a chef's practice. A practice consists of the practitioner's attitudes, skills, habits of mind, and knowledge. When I'm in the act of writing, I'm not consciously aware of these different aspects because my practice has largely become second nature. But this is the goal, that when confronted with a writing-related task, your practice kicks in and starts solving the problem. During any part of the writing process, a writer is engaging in the writer's practice. I'm doing it as I type these words, the same way a chef is when sautéing vegetables. But I'm also doing it as I walk the dog, thinking about the projects I'm working on, just as a chef is when planning a menu. A teacher's practice isn't limited to the time in class, but includes all the preparation that makes class possible. A practice is not something that begins and ends at the moment you're actively doing it. It is a method of continual processing and problem-solving. For the elements of a practice to become second nature, it helps to consider them deliberately. Attitudes. What does the writer believe and value about the act of writing? Skills. What can a writer do? Habits of mind. How do writers think? Knowledge. What does a writer know? What do each of these look like as we're practicing our practice? Attitudes. The first thing to know about writing is, in the words of Jeff O'Neill, a longtime writing teacher and now digital media entrepreneur, you're going to spend your whole life learning how to write, and then you are going to die. Even though this may seem daunting, it means writing will never get boring. As you work through the experiences in this book, you will absolutely gain a sense of your own growth and improvement, but you will never reach the finish line. There is no finish line. Perhaps I am perverse, but I find the sentiment comforting. Writing should never be boring, provided we are writing in ways that matter to us. Skills. The experiences in this book are specifically and deliberately designed to provide opportunities to practice the skills associated with writing. In fact, the design is so deliberate that I often just come right out and say, in this experience, we will be practicing. Big picture, a writer knows how to conceive, draft, revise, edit, and polish a piece of writing. However, almost innumerable skills underlie each part of the process. A writer, for example, knows how to target a message to achieve a specific purpose when communicating to a specific audience within a specific medium or genre. This is called analyzing the rhetorical situation. In other words, one writes to real people under different conditions, while trying to say something that meets their needs and conveys one's message. A writer must be able to do research appropriate to the rhetorical situation. A writer must be able to think critically in order to understand the impact of their own ideas on the audience, which includes understanding the ideas and emotions others will bring to the act of reading. A writer must be able to craft sentences that achieve their purposes in language appropriate for their occasion and audience. Every experience in this book touches on these elements of the writer's practice, some more heavily than others, depending on the experience. But at a minimum, you will always be writing to an audience to fulfill a specific purpose. Habits of mind. I have been writing for so long, I find I take writers' habits of mind for granted, so I must pause and think for a moment about what I think. What do I believe about writing? A big part of what I believe is articulated in the Framework for Success in Post-Secondary Writing, a document developed collaboratively by the Council of Writing Program Administrators, the National Council of Teachers of English, and the National Writing Project. This is like the Avengers, Justice League, and X-Men coming together to solve a problem in an area of comic book superhero expertise. Writers must be curious. Writers want to know more about themselves and the world around them. Writers must be open. They desire answers to questions while recognizing those answers may conflict with previously held beliefs, or that there may be no single answer, and the truth instead resides in shades of gray. Writers must be engaged. Believing what you're writing about matters, to an audience above all, makes it much easier to be involved and invested in learning. Writers must be creative. There is no formula for most writing, so almost every occasion involves moving from what is known into the unknown and finding novel solutions to unique problems. Writers must be ethical and responsible. When writing to audiences, writers are responsible for the accuracy and truthfulness of what they write. Writers never knowingly deceive nor take the ideas of others without credit. Writers must be empathetic. Empathy not only helps us understand the audiences we're writing for, but also allows us to better observe the world in which we're writing. Writers must be obsessive. No one will care about your own writing more than you. The desire to get it right starts with the writer. Writers must learn from their experiences. A fancy term for this is metacognition, or thinking about thinking. This is where the reflection portion of the experiences comes in. Think of these as the values working in the background as you make choices within the writing experiences. If you're aware of their existence, you're more likely to put them into practice. Knowledge. Writing knowledge has two dimensions. 1. Knowledge about writing, which includes understanding all the elements of the writer's practice outlined earlier. 2. Knowledge concerning the subject that's being written about. Knowledge about writing is built through a combination of study, experience, and reflection. Much of what I know about writing comes from my own experiences with writing and teaching writing. While I often read what other people say about writing, most of what I know about writing is rooted in my own experiences. This is why this book focuses on writing experiences. Subject knowledge is acquired over time as you are exposed to more and more information. Unlike cramming for a test, where much of what you learned disappears not long after the exam, writing requires you to retain and utilize knowledge, making it significantly stickier. As much as possible, the experiences in this book are designed to encourage you to access, and then build upon, your existing subject expertise. But there are some experiences that will require you to enhance your knowledge of what you're writing about. This first section is designed to work on some of the foundational aspects of the writer's practice, things like the writer's process, considering the audience, and reading like a writer. These foundations will be carried through the rest of the book, but in this section, the experiences focus specifically on highlighting these aspects of the writer's practice. How do I? Instructions. Try to think of a procedure or activity you're expert in. Maybe you make the perfect cup of coffee. Maybe you can sew a dress, or dress a deer. Can you defeat that impossible level on some video game, or tell someone how to play When the Saints Go Marching In on the harmonica? Everyone has some kind of expertise they're capable of sharing with the world. Someone else may have occasion to need that expertise. Audience. Someone who has never done what you're telling them how to do. However, they probably cannot and should not be a blank slate. One of the first steps will be to more deeply consider who your audience will be. Purpose. The audience has a need, for a good cup of coffee, to play When the Saints Go Marching In on the harmonica, or whatever, and they have turned to you as an expert in helping fulfill this need. Don't be shy about it. Be the expert you are. Process. 1. Spend some time inventorying your own expertise. What are you good at? What do you enjoy doing? What do you take pride in? Make a list. 2. Select your subject. What one skill do you think best lends itself to this particular writing-related problem? Why have you chosen that one? 3. Plan. A good way of preparing to write the solution to this writing-related problem is to do the action itself while taking careful notes along the way. 4. Audience analysis. Who is your audience? We know their need to do what you already know how to do, but what might their attitudes be toward the task? Excitement? Trepidation? Something else? Additionally, what about their knowledge? To successfully execute the mission, what will they need to know or be able to do prior to engaging with your solution to this writing-related problem? 5. Find and analyze models. Look for models that serve similar purposes. Stay away from ones too closely related to your own task. You don't want to risk copying, and also remember that you're the expert here. You don't want to be unduly influenced by someone else's approach, which may actually be kind of crappy. Look at how these models are formatted and structured. How do they begin? How is the information conveyed? What techniques will you use and choices will you make in your own instructions? 6. Draft. Doing your best to meet your audience's needs. Draft your document. Use your models to help guide your approach. For our purposes, you're restricted to text-only instructions. No diagrams or illustrations are allowed or required. 7. Test draft. Give your draft to someone else. Ideally, you can exchange drafts with someone else engaged in the same experience, so you can get a perspective on this experience from the standpoint of the audience. If possible, have them attempt the task by following your directions while you do the same with their task. If that isn't possible, try to visualize the process while reading. Would they be successful? Where might they be confused or even lost? Identify those sections. Areas of confusion in need of additional clarity, as well as those elements that work well, should be specifically identified and discussed. 8. Revised draft. Based on the feedback, as well as any additional insights gained along the way, revise the draft to improve its effectiveness. Think of your audience. 9. Edit and polish. Even small errors can throw off an audience that's trying to follow the instructions closely. Fixable mistakes can also shake their confidence in the quality of your instructions. Reflect. Writing instructions using only text was probably pretty hard. What could be done differently if you had the benefit of illustrations? Is the cliché of a picture being worth 1,000 words true in this case? Is there an even better way? Would your task be better learned by a different method? What about a video or other visual simulation? What would be the trade-off between text instructions and video instructions? When would one be more useful than the other? Or is your task something that would be best done in a live setting, either one-on-one with you as the expert or in a class setting? How would the different atmospheres change the learning? How would your role as the expert change? What's best? Given total freedom to craft a solution to this problem, what method would you use and why? How and why is this best for the audience? It may even be a combination of methods. The writing process. Sometimes when I ask people if they have a writing process, they hem and haw and say, maybe? Sorta. Sometimes? In truth, provided you're capable of eventually producing something, everyone has a writing process. It may not be a particularly great process and may contain counterproductive elements, but it's still a process. In college, under the delusion that I was most creative under maximum deadline pressure, I would wait to get started the night before an assignment was due. To fuel this last-minute process, I would secure a 2-liter bottle of Coca-Cola and a 2-pound bag of peanut M&Ms, and chug the soda and gobble the candy as I worked. No one would confuse my college academic record with the work of a highly dedicated and accomplished student, but it got the job done. Except There was one time when I finished an essay at around 4 o'clock a.m., early by my standards, and when I tried to go to bed, I realized...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?